And being a doctor, old Tommy here decided to use his medical expertise to orchestrate an elaborate murder that would appear natural and undetectable. In January 2024, he began weaving his...
Wow, you're a doctor and that's not good enough money for you? You act like you're the crackhead on the corner with 2 pennies in his pocket.
Is there a spooky ghost here?
And welcome back to the Witching Hour, my friend. If you're new here, I am Lance. If you're returning, welcome back. Today, I have actually a request from Hungry for Lunch. Hungry for Lunch, thank you for commenting. And you suggested to LazyMasquerade. I think I remember seeing that channel, scrolling through other videos and stuff. So I went back and started looking through what you said on that channel. And so I found something that was kind of really interesting. So I'm glad you suggested this. This one's called 5 Disturbing Cases That Will Make You Question Humanity. Now, I thought this might be kind of interesting. The thumbnail looked quite interesting. Thank you, Hungry for Lunch, for recommending this channel. I don't know if this is exactly one of the videos you would suggest, but I thought the thumbnail looked really cool. And why not, right? So thanks again, Hungry for Lunch. Show some love. And of course, I'll leave the link for LazyMasquerade down below so you can check out their channel. And here we go. Oh, kind of squishy sounds I hear there. Oh, what a nice little intro. Gives me old video game vibes. Love that.
In this episode, we'll be diving into a handful of lesser-known cases from around the world that are bound to make you question your faith in humanity. A retired cop, a local councillor, a model husband, and a father of 2. Watching Francois Verove on the French game show Everyone Wants to Take His Place, you'd have no reason to suspect he was anything but upstanding. Indeed, he'd served in the National Gendarmerie, worked as a motorcyclist in the Republican Guard, and became an officer in Paris's National Police Force. Serving, protecting, deceiving. Hidden behind Francois's friendly mask was the worst type of monster there is. The type that can hide in plain sight. But let's rewind a bit. For decades, French authorities have been hunting an elusive serial killer known as Le Grêlé. In English, the pockmarked man. Between 1986 and 1994, he'd attacked and taken the lives of at least 3 people, though the true number is believed to be much higher. His first confirmed victim was 11-year-old Cécile Bloch, who he had dragged from an elevator in her Parisian apartment building into a room in the basement. There, he slaughtered her and wrapped her up in a carpet. Then came electrician Gilles Pellitti and au pair Irmgard Müller, 38 and 20 respectively, who were both found in an apartment in the Marais district of Paris. Gilles was positioned face down, with his arms and legs tightly bound in a choke lace. Nearby, Irmgard's body had been placed upright against the frame of a bunk bed, her throat slashed by a blade. Both had been burned with cigarettes prior to their slayings. DNA found on Irmgard's body matched perfectly with the sample found on Cécile Bloch 11 months prior, confirming that this was the work of the same individual. Numerous others survived their encounter with Le Grêlé. They described him as having a face covered in acne scars, hence his nickname. In most cases, he'd flashed a police badge at his victims to coerce them either into his vehicle or a nearby apartment, only to then handcuff them and leave them at his mercy. Leading investigators knew that Le Grêlé had to be one of their own. There were too many telltale signs. The unsub had displayed a police badge, had used law enforcement equipment such as handcuffs and walkie-talkies, and spoke in recognizable police jargon. Not to mention, he'd reportedly demonstrated an advanced understanding of investigative procedures, which he had leveraged to evade capture. Le Grêlé's last confirmed attack also happened to occur in Saclay, a location near a gendarmerie training center. Despite having a comprehensive description of the perp and disseminating this e-fit, the French authorities had a hard time rooting out the snake among their ranks, which seems odd given his distinctive scars. Still, years elapsed, and though several other cases were linked to Legretti, his spree came to a sudden end sometime around the late 90s, when he seemingly turned inactive, either due to old age, boredom, a change in lifestyle, or an early grave. But despite the passing of time, detectives never gave up on bringing
Apparently, he's busy going to a game show, apparently.
Legretti to justice.
Apparently
In
he loves his
2019,
game shows.
more than 3 decades after Legrelet's first kill, newly retired officer Francois Verove appeared on State Channel France 2 as a game show contestant. Laughing and joking with host Nagui Pham, Francois seemed like an ordinary character, entertaining the audience as he answered general knowledge questions and explaining how now that he was retired, he spent most of his free time keeping walkers safe in Paris parks. He appeared completely normal, charming even, but behind his smile lurked a dark truth. In an effort to unmask Legretti, an investigating judge who took over the case ordered the summons of 750 officers who had been active in the Ile-de-France region during the original crime spree, requesting DNA samples from each individual guardsman. On September 24th, 2021, 2 years after his television debut, Francois Verove received his summons via telephone and promptly fled his home in Le Grand Amont. That's because he knew what the DNA results would show. Rather than face what most would call justice, but what he'd call humiliation, Francois had instead rented an apartment in the coastal town of Le Grau-de-Roy, where he ended his own existence on September 29th, 2021. DNA extracted from his remains matched perfectly with the specimens found on the confirmed Legretti victims. The pockmarked man had finally been identified. In a note found at the scene, the 59-year-old confessed to the horrors that he had committed, explaining that he was consumed by an uncontrollable mad rage. He admitted, quote, "I am a great criminal who committed unforgivable acts until the end of the 90s. There were times when I couldn't stand it, and I had to destroy, sully, kill someone innocent." The letter was addressed to his wife, with whom he had shared a seemingly normal life, raising 2 children. The note claimed that he had committed these atrocities under dark impulses, which he suppressed when he started his family. He claimed that he hadn't committed a crime since 1997, hinting that there are potentially many more victims that the authorities still don't know about. Detectives believe that Francois may have committed more than 9 killings, including those of 23-year-old Sophie Narn, who was slain in an apartment building she was showing in 1991, and 19-year-old Karine Leroy, whose lifeless body was found in a forest near her residence. Francois' double life went unnoticed by those closest to him. His wife had never suspected that her husband, the former cop, could be the cold-blooded monster who had terrified Paris for so many years.
Damn.
His friends described him as a gentleman to everyone, and never suspected he was capable of committing such atrocities, though they did admit that he could get angry easily.
Oh, yeah.
It's both sad and unsettling that monsters like Francois choose to abuse their authority and take advantage of those that they've sworn to protect.
Yep.
And worse, that he was able to turn up for work the next day with a smile on his pockmarked face. But he was so comfortable with his crimes that he was able to appear on television using his real name without a care in the world, only bothering to disguise himself by growing a beard to hide his pockmarks.
Yeah, I was just
Thankfully, Legretti can never harm another person again, but it still makes you question how he went undetected for so long. Stay vigilant, because the unfortunate reality is that there are plenty of other Francois out there. People walking around in the daylight, hiding the darkest of secrets. People you'd never expect.
Ain't that the truth?
In January 2022, 32-year-old Brandon O'Quinn Raspberry had just begun settling into life in Nixon, a small town in Gonzales County, Texas. He'd been working at Holmes Food for 3 months, and had only recently moved into the Lazy J RV Park and Ranch, where he had been staying for just 4 days. Tragically, his time there was cut short. On January 18th of that year, after Brandon failed to show up for work for 2 consecutive days, his concerned boss contacted the RV park owner. Said owner tried repeatedly to get a response from Brandon, but received no answer. Eventually, they entered his motorhome, uncovering a grim scene. Brandon, sprawled out lifeless on his bed, with a small hole in his skull. Forensic teams meticulously searched the RV for evidence, sending crucial items to the Austin Crime Lab for analysis. Investigators also issued search warrants to trace Brandon's cell phone activity and any other devices nearby during the suspected time of the crime. An autopsy by the Travis County Medical Examiner revealed that Brandon had been shot in the head at close range. The report estimated that he had been dead for approximately 2 days before his body was discovered. In spite of these findings, investigators uncovered no leads. Brandon's killer seemed to have vanished without a trace. Fast forward to April 2024, over 2 years later. A troubling incident at the Nixon Smiley Independent School District unexpectedly reignited the case. An elementary student had threatened another child on a school bus, saying that he would end them. Alarmed, the school conducted a threat assessment and contacted law enforcement. When a deputy arrived to investigate, the situation took a shocking turn. Instead of admitting that he had threatened the other child, the boy allegedly confessed to something far more sinister. He claimed to have killed a man 2 years earlier. Taking that statement seriously, investigators recalled the unsolved case of Brandon Raspberry and brought the boy in for a forensic interview at a child advocacy center. During the interview, the youngster provided chilling details about the crime, describing Brandon's slaying in a way that only someone with first-hand knowledge could. The boy revealed that on January 16th, 2022, he'd visited his grandfather, who lived a few lots away from Brandon in the Lazy J RV park. While exploring his grandfather's truck, he found a handgun which he described as dirt and army green in the glove compartment, and decided on a whim to use it. Taking the weapon, he selected Brandon's RV at random and quietly entered. Inside, he saw Brandon asleep in his bed.
Asleep.
Without hesitation, the boy tiptoed over and shot Brandon once in the head at point-blank range. Before leaving, he fired a second shot into the couch, then calmly returned the gun to the glove box of the truck. Perhaps the most disturbing detail was the fact that the boy didn't even know Brandon personally and had no motive for ending his life. When asked if Brandon had ever wronged him or made him angry, the boy simply replied, "No." He just wanted to see what would happen, what it felt like. On April 12th, 2024, investigators found that same pistol at a pawn shop in Seguin, Texas. The boy's grandfather had sold it. Forensic analysis confirmed that the gun matched the 2 shell casings recovered from Brandon's RV, proving that it was the weapon used to end his life. Due to the boy's age, only 7 at the time of the incident, he couldn't be charged with murder under Texas law, which holds that children under 10 can't be held criminally accountable. The child was placed in emergency psychiatric detention for 72 hours, and later...
Okay. Current status. The now 10-year-old is waiting a court date for making a threat on the school bus, but will not be charged in connection with Brandon's slaying. He remains in the custody of the Gonzales County Juvenile Probation Department. Yeah, I hope so. Something.
Taken into custody for making a threat on the school bus.
That's a shame. Ruined your life for the rest of your life being stupid.
Sulfuran Osman Zulkarnain was a young Malaysian man who had dreamed of serving his country from a young age, and after graduating from secondary school, took his first step toward achieving that goal by enrolling at the National Defence University of Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur. His mother, Hawa Osman, had expressed concerns about his decision. Her reluctance stemmed from challenges that her late brother had faced during his military career, and horror stories that she had heard from other young recruits. Despite this, Sulfuran pursued his dream, making sure to stay in regular contact with his family to put their minds at ease. In his 3rd year, though, something happened. A fellow cadet, Muhammad Akmal Zahari Azmal, accused Sulfuran of stealing his laptop, a claim that was completely unfounded. Despite Sulfuran's repeated denials, Akmal refused to believe him. Seeking validation, Akmal enlisted the help of a bomber. a traditional healer, or, if you like, charlatan, who falsely claimed through visions that Zulfirin was the thief. This only escalated the situation, leading to the horrors which would follow.
Oh, Jesus.
On May 21st, 2017, Akmal, along with a dozen or so other classmates loyal to him, confined Zulfirin at the university dormitory and began beating him, demanding a confession. Even in the face of mounting aggression, Zulfirin maintained his innocence. The next day, on May 22nd, the situation worsened. 6 individuals, led by Akmal, restrained Zulfirin and used a steam iron to inflict burns across his entire body, including his most vulnerable areas. Despite the extreme pain, Zulfirin continued to deny stealing the laptop. The torture lasted for hours, leaving him covered in burns. For days following the assault, Zulfirin didn't attend class or training due to his deteriorating condition. On May 27th, he was brought to a clinic by 4 of the 6 main culprits. Unable to speak for himself, the group falsely told the doctor that Zulfirin had been caught in an explosion during a training exercise. Alarmed by the severity of the burns, the doctor urged them to take Zulfirin to the hospital and even wrote a referral letter. However, his advice was ignored, and the group brought Zulfirin back to the barracks, where they kept him hidden from view. 2 of Zulfirin's closest friends attempted to help him by anonymously sending letters to the warden, fearing that they might become the next targets of scolding if they approached him directly. Unfortunately, their efforts went ignored, and the warden failed to take any action.
That's a shame.
When Zulfirin returned to the clinic on May 31st, he was visibly weaker, dehydrated and in pain. Accompanied this time by Akmal and one of his accomplices, he refused to go to hospital, likely under threat of violence, and only asked for his wounds to be cleaned and bandaged. The following day, on June 1st, one of the perpetrators called for an ambulance after finding Zulfirin unresponsive. The 20-year-old was pronounced dead at Serdang Hospital the following day,
20 years old.
his body swollen beyond belief. The forensic pathologist who examined Zulfirin reported 90 burn marks, 29 of which were 3rd degree and so severe that they exposed wet muscle tissue. She concluded that these injuries caused heart swelling and kidney failure, ultimately resulting in death. Zulfirin's passing, now classified as a homicide, sent shockwaves through Malaysia. It's believed that 20 to 30 students may have been involved in the attack, but authorities identified 19 students, aged between 20 and 21, as the main perpetrators. On June 14th, 2017, 6 students were charged with first-degree murder under Section 302 of the Malaysian Penal Code, which carries the mandatory death penalty.
Good.
They were the aforementioned ringleader, Akmal, and his 5 closest cronies, Azamuddin Mad Sofi, Najib Modrazi, Afif Najmuddin Azahat, Shobarin Sabri, and Abdul Hakim Modali. Another 13 students, whose identities were withheld, were charged under Section 330 for voluntarily causing hurt to force a confession. All 19 suspects pleaded not guilty. The main 6 had their charges reduced and were sentenced to a mere 13 years behind bars. They were seen laughing and smiling as they left court following the verdict. Later, a 3-judge panel at the Court of Appeal, helmed by Justice Hadaria Saeed Ismail, unanimously decided that only the death penalty could address the case's gravity, and that the 6 men were to be sent to the gallows. Their capital sentence is yet to be carried out. In addition, all but one of the remaining 13 defendants were found guilty of intentionally causing injury to coerce a confession from Zulfirin. Their original punishments were also increased, from 3 to 4 years apiece. The one student who was acquitted, Akmal Akif, was one of Zulfirin's closest friends, and had been one of the 2 cadets to send a letter to the warden. The other suspects had learned about the letter, and, holding a grudge, falsely implicated him in Zulfirin's slaying. After a long ordeal, Akmal was able to prove his innocence and was finally released in 2019.
Bless his heart. Good
Human rights groups continue to campaign to save the lives of the 6 condemned men. In response, Zulfirin's parents condemned their advocacy for leniency, accusing them of failing to acknowledge the inhumane torture inflicted on their son, while championing mercy for the perpetrators. They also declined to meet the families of the convicted, stating that it was too late for apologies, seeing how no apologies were offered during the trial.
Yeah, no shit.
The incident, of course, affected his family immensely. So much so that none of them can even look at a steam iron, let alone use one. Zulfarin's story remains a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked cruelty, especially in institutions meant to foster discipline and camaraderie, where herd mentality can quickly take over. The National Defense University of Malaysia has since gained notoriety, with it now colloquially being referred to as the Hell School.
Thomas Kwan.
Dr. Thomas Kwan was the kind of man who seemed to blend seamlessly into the fabric of society.
Oh my god, this looks like the guy from Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark. That's what he kind of looks like, the villain from Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. My god, that suit. If that doesn't make you look like a supervillain, that suit right there, nothing does. Wow.
Society.
It's nice.
A 53-year-old general practitioner from Sunderland, England, living a quiet, suburban life with his wife and young son in an affluent neighbourhood. A trusted member of his community who had helped countless people overcome illness. But despite having a respectable and well-paying job, behind closed waiting room doors, the good doctor was formulating a twisted plan to eliminate a man he believed stood between him and a small fortune.
Is it a laptop? Is it an Apple man? Oh my god. Jesus. A small fortune? What is this? Drake's treasure?
The target of Thomas's elaborate scheme was Patrick O'Hara, his mother's partner of 20 years. The source of Thomas's resentment? A will his mother, Jenny Lung, had written in 2021. It stipulated that her home couldn't be sold without Patrick's consent if she passed away first, a stipulation that enraged Thomas, whose sense of entitlement to his inheritance had already strained their relationship. The bitterness festered and came to a head when Thomas forced his way into his mother's home, prompting a police call. Although no charges were filed, the incident deepened the growing rift between mother and son. It seemed that in order to get his hands on his money, Thomas needed to take his de facto father-in-law, Patrick, out of the picture. And being a doctor, old Tommy here decided to use his medical expertise to orchestrate an elaborate murder that would appear natural and undetectable. In January 2024,
Wow.
he began weaving his...
Wow, you're a doctor and that's not good enough money for you? You act like you're the crackhead on this corner with 2 pennies in his pocket. You're a doctor. A doctor. Bruh. Unless you're a shitty doctor, you should be making pretty decent money. Look into that clean-ass suit that you're wearing. You ain't doing too bad, so I don't know why you hating so goddamn much. Good lord.
Web of deceit. Using NHS-headed paper, Thomas drafted a letter under the name Mr. Raj Patel of the Community-Associated Nursing Team, offering Patrick a home visit for a COVID booster jab. The letter even included a QR code linking to a professional-looking questionnaire, complete with a scheduled appointment of January 22nd. Trusting the legitimacy of the letter, Patrick accepted the offer. Meanwhile, Thomas meticulously prepared for their fateful meeting. He booked a room at a hotel under a false name and drove there in the family car, outfitted with fake license plates. Disguising himself as a nurse, he donned a mask, tinted glasses, a hat, and a long coat. A recovered photo from his computer showed that he had also experimented with a wig, false beard, and moustache. He even created this fake NHS ID to fool passers-by that he was Raj Patel, a man who didn't actually exist. The whole charade would have been laughable had his next move not been so sinister.
Did you paint your skin? Did you put makeup on that looked like you're... Sir, you can get canceled for that, sir. You're posing as an Indian man? A Patel? Really? That is the worst wig I've ever seen. What is that on top of your head anyway? It's like something died on top of your head. That's horrible. That looks as fake as shit. Look at this. Look like a Oompa Loompa with that horrible makeup job. That cannot be your actual skin tone. That is, you need some makeup then.
On the morning of the appointment,
That is not a real
Patrick
picture.
answered the door,
Oh.
welcoming Nurse Raj into the house, and even calling out to Thomas's mother that the NHS man had arrived. The disguised Thomas played his part flawlessly, taking Patrick's blood pressure and collecting blood and urine samples in the
Did he so he also like changed his voice too? You tell me that they didn't recognize his voice?
lead up to the big finale. In an unsettling twist, Thomas's mother asked for her blood pressure to be checked too. Oblivious to the truth, she didn't recognize her son, and even chatted about her medication. When it came time for the booster jab, Thomas injected Patrick with a chemical believed to be a never-before-used substance sourced from the secretive Porton Down weapons lab. The injection caused searing pain, prompting Patrick to cry out, "Bloody hell!" Thomas, maintaining his act, reassured him in a fake Indian accent that the pain was normal. As Thomas prepared to leave, his mother remarked, "My, Nurse Raj, you're just the same height as my son." That statement immediately made Patrick feel uneasy. He looked out onto the street and watched as Thomas, or Raj, left, wondering whether he should call him back for a closer look. But the moment passed. Unbeknownst to Patrick, the chemical in the syringe would soon wreak havoc upon him. The injection site developed burns and blisters before evolving into necrotizing fasciitis, a deadly, flesh-eating disease. Now experiencing intense pain, Patrick sought help. Surgeons fought desperately to stop the infection, cutting away diseased flesh to save the pensioner's life. Thankfully, Patrick did survive, and the incident set off an investigation that would expose Thomas's sinister plot. 2 weeks later, Thomas was arrested.
Good.
He refused to answer police questions, but ominously warned them to exercise caution when searching his garage. There, investigators discovered vials of mercury, arsenic, thallium, sulfuric acid, and even ingredients for ricin. On Thomas's computer hard drive, they also uncovered a treasure trove of incriminating evidence, including documents titled Guidance on Homicide Investigations, Instructions on Making Ricin from Castor Beans, a recipe for sodium cyanide,
fun.
and 10 poisons used to kill people.
Oh, that's a fun
Police
Sunday
later discovered
look.
that Thomas had installed spyware on a computer at his mother's home, enabling him to monitor emails, internet searches, and even film the couple as they used it. Initially, Thomas admitted to only administering a noxious substance, claiming he intended to cause Patrick no more than mild irritation. However, as the prosecution's case unfolded, it became clear the evidence against him was overwhelming. Newcastle Crown Court heard that the substance he used was something only a knowledgeable poisoner would select, designed to avoid detection and complicate treatment. After hearing the opening arguments against him, Thomas changed his plea to guilty in hopes of leniency. He was sentenced to 31 years and 5 months behind bars. The revelation of Thomas's double life stunned those who knew him. To his patients and neighbors, he was an unassuming family man living on the edges of a quiet estate.
He has a family? The psychopath?
Yet beneath the surface, he harbored a cold, calculating nature that led him to plan the slaying of a man he deemed an obstacle. Thomas Kwan's story is a chilling reminder of how greed can corrupt even those in positions of trust, leading an otherwise respectable GP to break his Hippocratic oath and become a would-be killer. Though thankfully, Thomas wasn't the mastermind he thought he was.
Yeah, thank God. Jesus Christ. What happened to Jen? What happened to Jen? What happened to baby Jen?
This next case was brought to my attention by the undisputed king of Asian true crime write-ups, Moondog151 over on Reddit, whose breakdown of this case was an invaluable resource. On February 23rd, 1969, 14-year-old Japanese student Jin Shoyama was sitting on his porch in Sasebo, Nagasaki Prefecture, working on crafts for school. It had been something of a busy Sunday, with Jin desperately trying to get some work finished before the start of the school week. After hitting a brick wall, he went inside and told his family that he was heading to the Tamaya department store to buy some more materials. Jin quickly put on his Hanazono Junior High School uniform and cap, for even though it was the weekend, like many other Japanese students of the era, Jin had a deep-rooted sense of school pride. He set off out the door at approximately 2 p.m. His family would never see him again. Hours later, at 6:30 p.m., a man appeared at the Shoyama household holding Jin's cap. Without hesitation, he stated, "The owner of this hat stole my money." The man was a complete stranger to the Shoyama family, and due to Japan's strict privacy laws, his name has never been made public. So for the purposes of this video, I'll be referring to him as Tanaka. Tanaka, who claimed to be a clerk at a dry cleaner's, described his encounter with Jin earlier that afternoon. At 3:30 p.m., he claimed to have seen two boys struggling to free their bike after its wheels had gotten stuck in a gutter. Being the good Samaritan he was, Tanaka took off his jacket, neatly folded it, and placed it by the roadside before lending the youngsters a hand. While helping them, he said that one of the boys snatched his jacket and fled the scene, and the other ran off behind him. According to Tanaka, inside one of the jacket pockets was 460,000 yen. Adjusted for inflation, that would have been between 10 and 12,000 US dollars today.
Why would you have that?
He of course pursued the boys, managing to grab Jin's cap before they escaped. Using the name inscribed on the cap, he tracked down Jin's family and demanded compensation. But for obvious reasons, they couldn't and wouldn't pay. He left in a huff shortly thereafter. The encounter left Jin's family puzzled. The accusation seemed entirely out of character for Jin. His report card noted that he was a serious and quiet young man who served as a discipline committee member and who was trusted by all his classmates. In their mind, he would have chased down his friend and made him give back the jacket. But Tanaka's sudden appearance and story were deeply unsettling, especially since he had produced a cap that was clearly Jin's. By the next morning, Jin still hadn't returned home.
No one's concerned
What
by
had
this?
arrived was a letter addressed to his father. That letter, postmarked the night of Jin's disappearance, read as follows. Dispensing with preliminaries. I'm sorry for worrying you. One of my bad friends made me steal the money. There was more than 400,000 yen in there, but I only received a little. Please tell school that I'll be absent for a while until I sort myself out. I'll return home soon and apologize. Please don't come looking for me. Jin. While the letter matched Jin's handwriting, his family found it extremely suspicious, and, concerned for their son's safety, finally contacted the police.
Don't come looking for me. You're a child. Of course you're gonna come looking for you. What the kind of silly shit is that? Don't come looking for me. If you kidnap that kid and you write that thing, you think they're don't come looking for me. He's not like an 18, 19-year-old kid that just moved out and says, I'm going to, sow my wild oats and, flee the nest. He's a child. Don't come looking for me.
Instead of dismissing the case as a runaway incident, though, the authorities agreed that something was amiss. Experts confirmed that the handwriting matched Jin's. Given the complexity of Japanese written characters, people's handwriting is far more idiosyncratic than in languages based on Latin script, and faking someone else's style enough to fool their family is no small feat. However, they did note some irregularities. The letter had been written both too neatly and too formally, using kanji combinations that Jin would have never used. For example, Zenryaku, which is how one begins a short letter, and roughly translates into dispensing with preliminaries. It's a complex set of kanji that Jin likely wouldn't have written. They also noted how he had used hiragana to write much of the letter, including his own name. Hiragana is much more simple to write than kanji, and could easily have been a sign that Jin had written the letter while frightened and under duress. Sure that Jin's life may be in mortal peril, the investigators turned their attention to Tanaka, the man who had accused Jin of theft. A quick background check confirmed that Tanaka was indeed a 24-year-old employee at a local dry cleaner's. However, detectives learned that he had been released from a juvenile detention center after serving 2 years. Tanaka's criminal history raised doubts about his story, including how he had obtained such a large sum of money and why he was walking around with it in his jacket pocket. He claimed that he had hidden the money under his parents' floorboards before his incarceration, a claim that his own family denied.
Yeah, I bet.
Tanaka's story had other inconsistencies too. For instance, He led police to the location of the alleged theft, but no witnesses, bike tracks, or other evidence supported his version of events. The idea that Jin and another boy could have known about the hidden money in his jacket also seemed implausible. Speaking of the other boy, none of Jin's friends said that they met up with him that afternoon, and no other children in the area had been reported missing. The police began suspecting that Tanaka may have randomly picked Jin off the streets to hold him for ransom. A large-scale search was quickly launched, composed of 50 investigators, Jin's family, teachers, classmates, and volunteers, all combing through Sasebo's streets, alleys, and surrounding mountains. Yet no trace of the missing student was found anywhere. Tanaka was subjected to a polygraph test, one which he passed with flying colours. Despite circumstantial evidence, the police couldn't directly link him to Jin's disappearance. However, their investigation revealed another chilling detail. Several witnesses reported seeing 3 other men asking strangers for Jin's home address half an hour before Tanaka arrived at Jin's house. The police theorized that these men were likely accomplices, possibly friends Tanaka had made while behind bars. But this new information concerned investigators. This group of kidnappers could have easily just asked Jin where he lived, so why were they out searching for leads? Either Jin refused to tell them, or, more worryingly, he'd been rendered unconscious, or worse. Efforts to identify the other 3 men were unsuccessful, and the case began to grow cold. In 1973, an interview with Tanaka was published in the Asahi Shimbun, one titled, Human Evaporation. Throughout the article, Tanaka, now working as a dump truck driver in Nara Prefecture where he had relocated with his wife and children, made cryptic statements which reignited public interest in the case. When asked about the origin of the money, he responded, "It would be disadvantageous if I told you, but I suppose I'll probably have to reveal that someday." When asked how the boys would have known about the money hidden inside his jacket, Tanaka admitted, "Yeah, you couldn't see it from the outside. Come to think of it, that is strange." When asked about Jin's height, he became visibly startled, incoherently describing Jin as his own height. Jin, at 168 centimeters, was significantly taller than the short, stocky Tanaka. This introduced a new theory, that Tanaka may have not directly met or even seen Jin, and may have instead been working as a messenger for those who had taken him. The police theorized that the 3 unidentified men might have orchestrated Jin's kidnapping and enlisted Tanaka as a middleman to deliver the cap and ransom demands. This explained why no direct evidence linked him to Jin's abduction. However, seeing how Tanaka never played ball, likely out of fear of incriminating himself, the police lacked enough evidence to reopen the case or pursue the new leads. No further demands for cash were ever made, and despite a large-scale investigation and widespread public interest, Jin Shoyama was never found. Who took Jin? Why did they target him? And crucially, what did they do with him? More than 50 years later, the case remains unsolved, with those unanswered questions casting a long shadow over Sasebo.
Wow. Okay. Well, halfway through it, I was like, this is heavy stuff. But yet again, the title says disturbing cases that make you question humanity. So it's not like I could jump ship halfway through it after I realized what I got myself into. It's heavy stuff. It's heavy stuff. You just kind of halfway through it, I was like, God, did I pick the right video? Because this is really kind of heavy stuff. Because I'm recording at like 2:00 in the morning, so kind of early in the morning to have heavy stuff. But or is it the best time because it's the witching hour basically? So it is the witching hour basically. So it is the best time. So depends on how you look at perspective. Anyway, other than that, this was a very good video. It's very well edited. Information was very chilling. It was. It's people. What can you say? People, huh? It's a shame that some of these young people just wasted their life. Like that young one that killed that man in the trailer. You just threw your whole life away. For something stupid. Maybe that was the red flag to say you were going to be the next future serial killer. Maybe that was it meant to be in your card because you are a sick human being. And that was the first red flag right there to put you behind bars. But it's a shame though, because that being that young, you're just throwing your whole life away. You're just wasting your whole life. Just your whole youth, your whole life. You just threw it away. It's a shame. But yeah, you gotta feel bad for the families and everybody who just lost their loved ones because of these demons out here. But let me know what you thought in the end of this video. It was a little bit longer video. Not really. It's actually 40-ish minutes. Usually our videos are like 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe. Anyway, what can you do? Anyway, this was a good video. I really enjoyed it. The pen is dark. It's very heavy stuff. So after this, maybe watch one of my very funnier videos. You know, check out the lighthearted videos after this, maybe. Or I got some more darker videos. Whatever you're in the mood for. Anyway, thanks for checking this out. Thank you for supporting, and take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Love, peace, and grace, and bye.